Hello friends, now let's understand the project life cycle. So what exactly is a project life cycle? What are the key phases in the life cycle of a project? And what are the key features or elements of each of the phase in the project life cycle? Each project goes through some of the key phases or stages in its entire life cycle. These are: number 1, planning phase; number 2, analysis phase; number 3, selection phase; number 4, financing phase; number 5, implementation phase; and number 6, review phase. Let's understand each of these phases in detail. Number 1, planning phase of the project. At the planning phase, a clear strategic alignment has to be established between the project and the corporate strategy, business strategy, and the financial strategy of the firm. At the corporate level, you need to understand what is your overall strategy about maintaining the brand, in which industries you want to be, and how you want to create wealth for the shareholders. A specific business under the corporate umbrella might be in a specific industry or a particular domain. Whether a project is very well aligned to that particular industry or a domain has to be very carefully established. Also, the firm might have a particular financing strategy. For example, the firm might say that most of the project financing should be out of the internal accruals. We will not go to the market for new projects because we have decent cash flows at the corporate level. In which case, they might say, for example, there is a X% hurdle rate. Any project that gives returns above that particular percentage only will be approved. So the project which is being undertaken at the planning stage has to take care of the corporate business as well as the financial strategic aspects of the firm. So when the preliminary project analysis is done, at the very outset, a study has to be done and a feasibility of the project has to be established, whether it is economic, whether it is commercial, or whether it is technical. And all the critical factors for viability of the project have to be very clearly laid down. This project is viable. These are the XYZ critical factors, and we feel that these factors will be undertaken or overcome in such a way as to make this project viable for the company. All this happens at the first stage, which is the planning stage. The second stage in the project life cycle is the analysis phase. And the analysis phase, you look into some key aspects like the marketing analysis, the technical analysis, financial analysis, economic analysis, ecological analysis, and so on and so forth. And also you undertake the cost versus benefit exercise. In the marketing analysis phase, you look at the overall market, which are the target customers, what is the addressable market size, how you are going to target specific set of customers, is that market good enough for the project to be viable. In the technical phase, you will look at the internal competencies, your partners, your ecosystem. For example, if you don't have the internal competency, can you align with a partner who will be able to provide that competency to undertake the project successfully? You look at the financial analysis. How is the firm performing? What are the financial goals? Do we have necessary funding? Do we have the resources to raise funds from the market at what cost? And so on and so forth. You will look at the economic analysis of the project. What is going to be the benefit for the organization as a whole from undertaking that particular project exercise. You look at the ecological aspects, which could include the impact on, let's say, immediate community, impact on the environment, because these are very important considerations in any large project today, because the people have become extremely cautious about the impact on the environment or the ecology. And you will also do the cost versus benefit analysis. You are undertaking so much cost and this is the benefit. For example, in most of the public projects, the benefits are intangible. They are not quantifiable or not financial. So that cost benefit analysis is extremely important at the analysis stage. The third stage in the project life cycle is typically selection. So you want to select a particular project or a particular asset acquisition or asset building. And you might have competing alternatives available and you say, no, we go for alternative number 3. For selection, you will use various criteria. There could be qualitative as well as quantitative criteria. Quantitative criteria are typically financial, right? So for example, you might say, so much of the payback period is involved in this particular project. This is the internal rate of return, this is the net present value, and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the quantitative ways of looking at the project and justifying it. The qualitative could involve, for example, the social cost benefits that are going to be there from this particular project. Let's say the community is going to be impacted, jobs are going to be created, environment is going to be protected, and so on and so forth. Some of the quantitative factors involved may be modern techniques like discounted payback, discounted cash flow, whereas you could use some of the the old legacy techniques also, like accounting rate of return or simple payback period, and so on and so forth. So at this stage, all these have to be undertaken in order to select a particular project. The fourth stage is the financing stage. At this stage, you have to tie up all the finances. During the planning stage and during the next stages, you would have worked out overall, how do you want to finance a particular project. X amount through internal accruals, Y amount by raising funds through equity or preference shares, and maybe Z through, let's say, the debt. Right, so you will have worked all those things out. Now you have to actually go into the market and raise those funds. Maybe by issuing fresh equity, you might go for a fresh equity issue to the new investors. You might issue, let's say, rights issue to the existing investors through a follow-on offering, or you might go for tying up the debt. Now, debt funding could be done from a bank, financial institution, from placing of, let's say, the bonds with select investors, or issuing the bonds in the market. So all this is going to impact something called the capital structure of the company, and it's also going to sort of freeze the cost of capital for that particular project. You have to also look at what is the leverage that you want to undertake. Leverage is good because if you get returns that are significantly higher than the cost of debt, then that excess is available for the equity shareholders. But higher leverage also leads to risk, right? Because the debt obligation is fixed. You might even go bankrupt if you undertake too much of a debt. So all these financing decisions are typically the fourth stage of the entire project life cycle. The fifth stage is the actual implementation of the project. Maybe let's say acquisition of a land, putting up the machinery, and so on and so forth. So this also internally involves some of the stages like project engineering phase, for example, the entire design engineering, negotiating with various stakeholders, contracting. Let's say, for example, you are going to import, let's say, a machine from abroad, negotiating with them, negotiating with the construction vendors, and then training your people, training your the vendors and partners, because they might come with some generic skill set. You want to build something very, very custom. And then how do you going to actually commission the plant, what testing is going to happen before that, right? So all these become a part of the implementation stage. You also have to build in necessary checks and balances in this phase, because, for example, is the formulation of the project adequate? Let's say you want to undertake a particular chemical manufacturing, right? So the plant which is being constructed, the various boilers which are there, reactors which are there, the various process equipment which is there, lab testing equipment which is there, is it taking all the things into account? Are you going to use responsibility accounting for this, in order to identify the cost centers and, allocate the cost to that and manage the budgets accordingly? All those things you have to set up before implementation stage. And what kind of network techniques you are going to use in order to smoothly manage the implementation. There are some program evaluation review technique like PERT or CPM, critical path method, right? So there are various techniques of actually implementing the project. So which one of those techniques you are going to use in order to be most efficient and resourceful in executing the project. All this has to be a part of the implementation of the project. The last stage is typically the review. Once you sort of say everything is good, the project should be commissioned, we have done all the quality checks, the safety checks, and project is good to go live, and the project goes live. Now you need to undertake the review, right? The review period may be defined, it may be first 3 months for a relatively shorter project, or maybe extending over, let's say, 2 or 3 years for a project which is big and which has taken a lot of time to build also. So you will look at factors like, what was your actual budget, what is the budget that you actually spent, how much time you expected for a particular phase, how much time it took for that particular phase, how much you estimated for, let's say, a particular asset to be created as a part of the project, how much you actually spent. So now all these projected versus actual performance. what kind of correction or corrective actions are required to be undertaken now. Maybe something has gone wrong during the project, you can't help it because all projects carry certain level of risk, but what can be done to correct it now, right? That has to become a part of the next, maybe it's a small project in itself. And what inputs or what learnings we are carrying so that we imbibe them in the planning of the next project, right? So all these are very important review activities. Most of the companies have this review, as a part of their standard project management methodology, because you must learn from what you have done in the past and imbibe those lessons when you undertake something in the future. So these are the top 6 pages of any project life cycle typically, right? In the subsequent videos, I'll be covering each of these phases in detail. For example, how the project analysis is done, how the project selection is done, how the project financing is done, and so on and so forth. We'll get into each of these phases in detail. But just now, I gave you an overview of the 6 stages of the project life cycle. I hope this has helped you understand the project life cycle at the high level. And it will also help you in various kind of exercises that you will undertake. For example, financing exercise, you need to know all the stages when you are undertaking that particular exercise. This will help you identify the kind of skill sets you need in order to get a great career in project finance. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If yes, please do like this video, share with your friends, and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Yes.